Hey, happy Sunday. Okay, so the video I wanted to do today has to deal with, have any of you guys seen the new 2020 coin that the last time I saw it was in January, and it was just saying that at some point in 2020 there's a coin with two bats on it that are supposed to be released here in 2020. Now, what I find is really interesting about that is that the coronavirus, right, was supposed to say that, like, people think that that started with the bats, right? So, coincidence? I don't know. I think it's kind of similar to, if you want to get into like conspiracy theories, it's kind of similar to the dollar bill, like how you're able to fold it and you have the Twin Towers, right? And they are exposed with like the exact places that they were hit on those Twin Towers, right? This was even before it even happened. So what I've come to understand is that warnings, is that both the good side and the bad side have to give warnings prior to their actions, and so then we get to kind of see those warnings. Okay, so that's what I'm just going to say there. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that that is what it is. And if you look up 2020, the coin for 2020 is two bats. So something to definitely consider. So just like a coin, how a coin has two sides, I am going to look at this in a positive and a negative way. So bats are symbolic of, every totem, every spirit animal totem has both good and downsides, right? So like a kangaroo can hop, but then there's limitations. So like a cheetah can run really fast, but I'm sure he has limitations in other areas because he runs quickly. So I'm choosing to look at this in two different ways. Like similar to like in Frozen 2 when how one of the North Ultra female leaders said, we listen when nature speaks, we listen. And so same thing with me, like when I see coincidences, I'm like, I take those as witnesses, and I'm like, okay, now I have two witnesses, and this is something that I should really look into. So bats are a master at vibration. A bat, sends sonic waves, and then the echo of which returns. Then that's how the bat knows how far something is, how close something is, how big something is, how small something is by those vibrations that he sends out, and then he receives those vibrations back. So bats come out at night, and through sound waves, they can maneuver the night in the ways that other mammals can't. I don't know of any other mammal on land that has the sonic vibration. So let me know, comment if you know it, but I'd have to look into that more, but this is unique. And I definitely know bats do that, and how they see is different than other people. They see through vibration. So over the past 6 years, maybe a little bit longer, I have studied energy, like in a different way of looking at energy blocks and how we get blocked, and how limiting false beliefs and trapped emotions are in our physical bodies. So, and how every emotion has a vibration. If you want to look up a really cool video, look up Dr. Masimoto's the water experiment, where he freezes droplets of water, and he freezes those into petri dishes, and each crystal comes out different, with a different, he also puts a name on there too. So he might have like love or hate or happiness or gratitude, and each one of those words have their own vibration and their own crystals, and their own crystals are different than the other crystals. So I have come to understand vibration in a different way than I understood it previously. So when I think about bats, and I'm like, well, they are masters of vibration. They are using different senses or they're using a different way of seeing, into the dark, into the night. So when we think about like darkness, right? I think that there is a misconception that darkness is bad or evil. And I think that where that kind of comes from is that those who are doing something unrighteously, that they can hide more in the dark. But if you have senses to actually permeate through the darkness, then you really have no need to fear, right? Because like, if you just know how to turn on the light, right, then you'd have no need to fear the darkness. The darkness is just showing, it's just absent of light. And it requires different types of senses. And so when I was putting this together, it really made me think of like Moses. When Moses was walking into when Moses was parting the sea, what I didn't understand until recently was that when someone that it wouldn't part until they stepped foot into the unknown. And I think that darkness, the reason why it scares us is because it's the unknown. We don't know what to expect out of it. And with this whole COVID situation, it's definitely the unknown. Like, it's hard to know where we're going to go, what's going to happen, what is our life going to look like next year, 5 years, 10 years? What is the implications of what has happened, and how's that going to affect us? Like, it's the unknown. It's similar to the darkness. You're stepping into the darkness, and we are going to have to learn other senses to navigate the darkness. So I do find it really kind of cool that the 2020 coin has the bats on it, and with the coronavirus, and I'm just thinking, well, we get to choose how we want to apply this, but I'm choosing to apply it saying, okay, you are in nighttime, and it's time for you to go into the darkness of the unknown and live your life, right? Like, these bats, they go into the darkness, they hunt, they fulfill their needs in darkness, because that's what time it is, and that's what their skills are, I guess, basically. So I definitely think we are only scared of the dark because we haven't learned how to see or navigate in the dark. But what's really interesting is that in the scriptures, so remember like Moses chapter 12, and view my other video on the Passover and how I believe that the Passover and partaking of the sacrament and putting on the armor of God are going to be the ways which we protect ourselves from like this virus and other viruses and the plagues, the plagues of the last days, and how we were told about like, and not all plagues are virus and bacterial related. Like, there are other plagues that happen. But the way which they were protected from. And anyways, in Moses chapter 12 and in Matthew. In Matthew, when Christ comes, when the bridegroom comes, it's midnight. And also too in Moses chapter 12, when the Lord comes to smite Egypt, it was at midnight. So guys, we already know that in the last days, it's going to be midnight. It's darkness when we are having to navigate the world and navigate the unknown. Yes, we do get the light, and we do get to develop our talents and our skills, and we get to be the light. So we get to be the light in the darkness. So it's just something to definitely consider. Most of the cosmos is dark space. So if you study quantum physics, how even though like this table, I don't know if you can see it. Okay, this table, right? This table seems solid, but it really isn't solid. There are atoms, and there's actually dark space in between. It's called dark matter also too. I don't know if you've heard of that, but yeah. And so when I think of like, when we talk about like, and we look at the cosmos, right? Like the cosmos has more dark space than it does light. And what I think of it is I think of it as matter unorganized. That's what I think of when I think of the cosmos in that dark space. I think that's where creation actually happens because it hasn't been given a command yet. So while we're in this darkness, we get to choose how we command the elements and the spaces around us because it's creation energy, which has not been given a command yet. Okay, for whatever reason, I'm supposed to talk about this. Okay, so okay, maybe I'll talk about it later. Okay, so bats also symbolize transition. So bats symbolize a transition from old patterns to new pattern. And this is why they're considered shapeshifters, is because they can maneuver. They can, so when you think of like shapeshifters and like vampires, right? Like they're bats. And oftentimes when someone shapeshifts, it's either into like a bat or an owl or an eagle or something, right? Something with typical wings. But are we not shifting from our old way of doing and thinking things because of the whole COVID situation, and we're shifting it into a new light, into a new way of doing things? I just think it's so interesting to see how all this is correlating and combining. Did you know that on the coin that there's an older bat and a newer bat, like a newborn bat? It looks like a baby bat that's still with his mom. So it's both honoring the old bat, but it's also honoring and showing a new birth and a new generation. In the scriptures, we are told that the events leading up to the second coming is like a woman in travail, a woman who is in pains to be delivered, and she's in that transition stage. And I've had 4 babies. I know a little bit about that transition phase. I was blessed to have epidurals, but my understanding of it is that transition phase is very painful, and so we're in that transition phase. The little bat looks like a little baby bat that was just delivered, and the mints have shut down. So I don't know if this coin has already been made or if it will be made in the future, but to me it just kind of shows that we're changing from one way of thinking and doing to a new way of doing, and we're changing from one level of consciousness to another level of consciousness. And I believe that there is this mass consciousness that's happening. And did you know that bats travel in groups? So make sure you know who your group is, right? Like you don't want to get caught in the wrong group. Which is why I kind of think what's kind of happening right now with the Facebook post and being divided on these different things. Like we're trying to find our groups. We're trying to be like, hey, who is our group? Who is our tribe? And so we get to sort through that. And bats obviously don't sleep at night. In the scriptures, it talks about the 144,000. So, okay, here's another really crazy coincidence. Okay, so in the scriptures, we know about the 144,000. We know that they will be set apart and sealed apart to be messengers of Christ, pretty much kind of acting like the apostles did, but they'll be directly working with Christ directly. And we also know through studying the scriptures that these are going to be translated beings, that they are not going to hunger, they're not going to thirst, death can't kill them. So it's similar to in the scriptures when Christ mentioned at the Mount of Transfiguration that some of those that are standing there are not going to taste of death. So these 144,000 in the Mormon scriptures, it'd be like similar to like the 3 Nephites. In the Bible, it would be similar to the story where Christ said, some of you are not going to taste of death. And, we know in the millennial state, people neither hunger nor thirst nor sleep. So I believe we are definitely in that transition stage. Okay, so crazy fact. Did you know that the Neowise comet is traveling at 144,000 miles per minute? Miles per hour, so mph. Did you know that? I mean, what's the coincidence, right? And we are told in the scriptures that there'll be signs in the heavens above and the earth below. And it talks about stars falling from the sky. Anyway, like I just feel like it's too symbolic, right? To have this happen at this time. Anyway, 144,000. What are the odds of that, right? And the last time Neowise was found passing by was 6,800 years ago. So maybe even when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden. I don't know, right? Maybe they were in transition, or maybe they just got cast out. I don't know. Like, they were in that transition phase, I believe. I wouldn't be surprised. So I don't know. I don't know when they got cast out, but it's interesting to think of. Okay, so now the negative meaning. So we know everything I just described is for those who are working in the light, and what the bats could symbolize as far as a positive sign. Now what I'm going to talk about is the negative meaning. So bats thrive in the darkness because they don't like the light. The light is too powerful for them. So just kind of be able to see the opposition in all things, right? So whereas like on the other side that I was talking about, where we can be the light. Anyway, this, like the negative side of it is that typically bats don't like the daytime. They like to sleep during the day, and they're nocturnal animals. And in the darkness, it makes the best hiding spots because one has to work extra hard to uncover what is hidden. And when it's hidden in the dark, you have to search even harder, right? So if there are negative powers, which be, they like the darkness because then they can hide more, because this is when people are sleeping. And, when we think about, one of my most favorite talks is by, it was Elder Uchtdorf, and I think it was like in 2000 or 2001, and he talks about, I think it's titled like, Are You Sleeping Through the Restoration? And he talks about the story of someone who slept through basically the whole entire transition of their tribe. And when he came back down, like the whole world had changed, and he had slept through the whole entire process. So are we sleeping through this 11th hour, or are we working and doing? So vampires, so bats and vampires seem to have like this connection, right? So bats can turn into vampires, and vampires can turn into bats. I mean, they have that connection. Vampires represent sucking the life and the soul out of their prey while their prey is in their weakest, most vulnerable state, and while they are sleeping. So I'm just going to say it again. So vampires suck life and soul out of their prey while they're in their weakest, most vulnerable state, and while they're sleeping. The prey of the vampire rebirths with an immortal death, basically the walking dead. So the ones who transition into darkness are the ones who are sleeping. They are the ones who are not awake and are not being vigilant, are not looking, and they are the ones who then rebirth into other vampires, which is an immortal death, and they're basically the walking dead, right? So I'm just reiterating what I said. And we know that before the bridegroom came at midnight, at least half of the virgins slept. So I will leave it at that. But basically, I will end with this quote. It's by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he says the only thing we need to fear is fear itself. So I don't think we need to look at this coin in like a horrible light. I think we just need to look at it in the symbolism that it is and what it means, and we get to choose. Are we going to choose to have us kind of relate more to the positive symbolism of these bats or the negative symbolism? So hope you have an amazing Sunday, and yeah, look at my other video with how the past has handled plagues in the past, like in the scriptures. Like scriptures have patterns, right? So how did the patterns, how did people in the past handle plagues? So anyways, hope you have an awesome Sunday, and we'll talk to you later.